um, just join me in a deep breath.
Thanks.
As I pray for illumination. Beloved God, we give thanks for this beautiful day. We give thanks for old friends coming home, making new friends. We give thanks for your spirit of love, and we pray that it touches everyone gathered with us today. We give thanks, God, for coming through another week and coming to rest in this moment. Oh Lord, you alone know what is hanging over us from the days past or looming ahead of us in the days to come. And we just pray that in this time here, precious short as it may be, that you might lift our burdens. Help us to quiet the busy, worried voices in our heads. Open us that we might just be here now, taking deeper breaths, settling into our bodies and our seats and our surroundings, that we might see a glimpse of your divine image reflected in each face we see this morning. Oh God, we pray, soften our hearts and open our minds and send your Spirit over us that the words spoken might become the words each of us needs to hear for where we are in our journey today. We pray these things in your many holy names with gratitude. Amen.
Amen.
Moses. We're going to get to that a little later. We're going to have a little contest about that. But first, today is known as World Pride Day. Many years ago, it was simply known as Gay Pride. 50 years ago, it wasn't known as anything. In the wee hours of the night on June 28th, police raided a small bar in New York City's Greenwich Village neighborhood. It was called the Stonewall Inn. Raids were nothing new. For a long time, bars paid protection money to the police, and that was known as the cost of doing business. Technically, it's called extortion. And some bars made even a little extra money by blackmailing their wealthier gay and lesbian clientele. Though back then, we only had lesbian and gay in our identities. We've now understood a lot more about the different communities. It turns out I have a lot to say about the socio-political situation over the last 50 years. And the only thing standing between you and a theological hostage situation is that we have to wrap this up by around 11 o'clock so those of us who are going to the march in San Francisco can catch the 11:20 ferry. Now, if you are interested in the 1,000 or so words that I very painfully excised from the sermon today, let me know. I will be happy to meet with you on another occasion and let it rest. Now, trying to remember the lesbian and gay world 50 years ago is pretty hard. We've grown quickly comfortable with marriage equality, with children who have 2 dads or 2 moms. And instead of a witty, lonely Paul Lynde or a soft and suggestive Charles Nelson Riley, we have the multi-talented Neil Patrick Harris and the outrageous Jack from Will and Grace, and so many dozens of LGBTQ plus fictional characters and real-life actors and singers and entertainers that we can't even name them. The path Harvey Milk paved is now full-fledged superhighway. with LGBTQ plus politicians, leaders, and this year even a serious candidate for President of the United States. So it may be hard to really understand how totally devastating such an arrest would have been back then. How great the cost if you were exposed as lesbian or gay. You would lose your job. You would lose your family, your children, your housing. Being exposed was so traumatic, some people lost their lives. I spoke on Palm Sunday about the intense isolation that a lesbian or gay person would feel growing up. The intense fear. And this fosters a pretty intense environment of secrecy as people worked hard to remove any possible signal that they were gay or lesbian, often going to great lengths, such as entering heterosexual marriages, having children, espousing homophobic attitudes, just to throw people off the track, of course. Sometimes also because some closeted gay people develop a sincere sense of self-loathing, those homophobic attitudes were real. When doctors and politicians and clergymen tell you all the time that something is wrong with you, you sometimes end up believing they are right. The closet became a catchphrase to reflect the hiding away of oneself. The closet was where lesbians and gay men kept their lives, their real lives. Friends who understood and loved them. Lovers who had closets of their own. The authentic joys and sorrows of a human life that because of intense, brutal persecution had to be kept stored away in a secret place for safekeeping. Moses, Moses, Moses. So what does that have to do with Moses? Well, first, does anyone know where I'm quoting from? Okay, well, I was going to offer you to take me out for lunch if you knew the answer. Next time I'll have a plant in the audience, but Anne Baxter in the Ten Commandments plays Nefertiti, the great Egyptian queen. She marries Ramses the Great, but she's in love with Moses. Now, of course, this is only in the movie, so don't watch that Cecil B. DeMille production and go off to some Bible trivia contest. You will not win. But as far as I can tell, Moses is the first closeted person in the Bible. He was born like everyone else, like every human being is born, created in the image of the divine, knit together by God in his mother's womb, fearfully and wonderfully made, as Psalm 139 tells us. My frame was not hidden from you, O God, when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes beheld my unformed substance. In your book were written all the days that were formed for me, when none of them as yet existed. Moses was born as all children are, with love in their heart and a purpose in their soul, yearning to express themselves, to connect with God and creation, to connect with others, to be loved, and even more importantly, to love. But he was a Jew, and the Pharaoh of Egypt commanded that all male Jewish children were to be drowned in the Nile River. But Moses' mother placed him in an ark and concealed the ark in the bulrushes of the riverbank, where the little baby was discovered and adopted by Pharaoh's daughter and reared as an Egyptian. An LGBTQ plus youth, somehow sensing a hostile world, creates a papyrus basket for herself, plasters it with bitumen and pitch. He wraps himself up within it and tries to float unnoticed among the reeds on the riverbank. Her frame, while not hidden to God, must be kept hidden from those who would destroy their spirit, break his body, shame her love. They develop a finely tuned persona to move through a dangerous world. For most of us who have not shared this identity, it is impossible to understand such constant fear, such ever-ready vigilance, the layer upon layer of self-protection that one must continually build upon. It is this intense isolation that continues to this day, even with all the advances we've made. At a wedding I attended just a few years ago, a very dear friend, a gay man married to a woman and a father of children, had to mourn the very, very recent death of his longtime secret lover, never letting on that his heart was broken and in tatters as we lifted our glasses and toasted to new love with the sparkle of the effervescent champagne. Wasn't that a beautiful wedding? Did you have a good time? Oh yes, lovely. It is a solitary experience that unless you are born into it, it is unimaginable, unfathomable. The closet, in many ways, is a coffin. When we talk about coming out, we don't mean telling your boss that you're gay. We don't mean, hey, Dad, I'm gonna bring my same-sex lover home for Thanksgiving. We mean we're out of the coffin. We're out of the box. We mean our life is no longer tucked secretly away on an upper shelf behind the Christmas ornaments. We mean we can breathe. It means we can live our lives the way God intended us to live them. Not spending all our energy on trying to conceal them. Sometimes when a person comes out, they're greeted by a complaint. Why didn't you tell me? Because of my sense of safety. Told me not to tell you. For those of you who don't live under the oppression, who fight the oppression, who are deeply welcoming, you allies, it can be hard to understand why someone remains closeted. Safety. It's nothing personal. And while it might be confusing how can a person be very close to you, and how can they appear to be happy and having a good time at a party and toasting the happy couple at the wedding, and be keeping such a big part of their lives privately to themselves. I wonder how Moses felt when he heard the Pharaoh ordering the Jews to work harder. Did he hear anti-Semitic jokes around the royal palace? What was it like for him to see his kinfolk enslaved every day, suffering while he was trapped in the closeted identity of a privileged Egyptian, the Pharaoh's grandson? But the closet isn't just for those who claim an LGBTQ plus identity. Pride is not just about sexual orientation. The fact is, many of us are closeted. Many of us have parts of ourselves tucked away behind the shoeboxes where no one is sure to look. Maybe it's a dream that you've never had shared with anyone, but it still has embers in your heart. Maybe it's what you believe about God, or what you don't believe about God. Maybe it's just how deeply you care about a good friend, or many of your good friends. We actually keep much of our hearts, our dreams, our lives tucked away. Maybe their consequences aren't as great as the ones that I described this morning, but they're still real. They still create a private place where we get to be ourselves by ourselves. Many of us struggle silently. In my privileged position as pastor, I know the tribulations that people who love you and whom you love, but they will not bring their trials and tribulations to you. You have nothing to hide. None of us does. And let us not be imprisoned by concepts of privacy. God made us to be with each other. God, whom we can't see, put the spark of that divine image in each one of us to help us through those tribulations, to deepen our joys and celebrations. God made you human, not perfect. And God teaches us compassion, that we might be fully human with each other. The very first covenant that God makes with the human beings is the rainbow. And it has every color in the world. And that's what God has created us to have and to share, our true colors. You are all fabulous creatures. And the world only spins forward. And we are so blessed to have a core where we understand that. And there's more we can reach for to show our true colors with each other. Will you please pray with me? Beloved God, we give thanks for the rainbow. It was your promise that you would never destroy humanity. Help us to do the same. Help us to embrace the rainbow, our true colors. Help us to share our hearts fully. Help us to get so close to each other it kind of scares us. Help us to have the biggest spring cleaning, to open up all our closets. Help us to breathe freely, to be ourselves, to be the divine, fabulous creatures you created us. We give thanks for such good companions on this journey, and for always your ever kind, ever loving kindness in our lives. And we pray, Amen.